Hi, I'm Jason and I'm the pastor and manager of the cafe here at Fresh Ground. Fresh Ground is in the heart of Battersea. We're located at the Northcote Road, St John's Road Junction on Battersea Rise, and we're just a stone's throw from Clapham Junction train station. We spent the last few years renovating this beautiful building so that it can be of service to the community 7 days a week for all sorts of things. We are a church and all that happens here is a part of that. Of course we meet on Sundays here for specific times of worship and reflection, but as you'll see, we have so much more than what happens here on a Sunday morning.
My name's Catherine and I run Butterfly Ballet, and we hold classes here twice a week at Fresh Ground. I love being here. I've lived in the area for 9 years, and the funny thing is I used to walk past when all the boardings were up, and I used to think, wouldn't it be great if that was like a community hub. And then before I knew it, I saw a sign outside saying we're looking for people to hire the halls and everything. And I do think it's a real asset to this area. I think it's a real hub, and I think it's a real opportunity for people to kind of meet here and have fun and relax, but then also have the opportunity to learn about all the different activities that are going on either for their children or for adults, and then also to learn the work and the activities that Fresh Ground are doing through the church. So I love being part of it.
Hi, so my name is Michelle and I am part of the pastoral team here at Fresh Ground. Being part of the Fresh Ground community, it means community, it means faith, it means compassion, it means all ages doing life together, doing faith together. It's exciting, it's creative, it's about good coffee, it's about great conversations. It's a really exciting place to be. I love being here. Fresh Ground is a great community. Recently we had a pancake parlour, which was a great event, and we brought all the different communities together.
I come on a Sunday to the worship services here, and my kids come to various events through the week. The Fresh Ground community, I'm accepted as I am, and we're building really strong friendships, and it's really exciting to be part of. Well, the highlight was today making loads of pancakes for the community, and I did that, and it was really good. So it was nice seeing all the people come in.
My name is Barish Lazar. I'm a movement artist and manual therapist. In Fresh Ground, I run a session called I Flow Movement. It's about developing mobility and strength and flexibility and harmony. I'm proud to be a part of Fresh Ground. Fresh Ground for me means coffee, community, support and family. So as soon as you step through the door, it's an amazing atmosphere. The smell of coffee it just is what it is. It's beautiful.
I'm Jessica, I'm part of the youth here at Fresh Ground. I really enjoy being part of the community here at Fresh Ground because it's an opportunity to make new friends. My name's Hannah Brown and I'm a Pilates teacher here at Fresh Ground. There's a real sense of community which I love about Fresh Ground. Every time I come into the cafe there's a nice buzz about the place. The facilities are really clean and the studio space is lovely.
My name is Veronica Martin and I run the Stay on Play groups at Fresh Ground. We run them every day in the mornings. I think it's great to be part of this community. I mean, I've been coming to Fresh Ground, I'm running the session since May, and I've become part of it, and I enjoy the people that come in, meeting different people, diverse cultures, and all the great things that take place here.
My name is Michelle Murray, and I'm a Pilates teacher, and I run a Pilates class at Fresh Ground. I think the facilities are amazing. When I first found out about Fresh Ground, a friend of mine told me to come along, and I walked in and I thought, wow, this is an amazing cafe. It was really spacious, really current in its thinking of how to set a really nice cafe out for people. So there were people with laptops, and there were families, mums and babies, and just friends talking, and the staff I found really, really friendly as well, so it had a really nice vibe to it.
As well as being a brilliant space to work from, because it's such a beautiful building, and whenever I come here to work there's a buzz, and that's a nice thing to be part of. It's just a fun environment to come into. I live locally, so it's nice to be teaching in my community, and a lot of my students are local. On many levels it's a brilliant space to work from. I really enjoy it.
I'm Hannah from Holistic Body Focus.
I'm Jason Wright, I'm part of the pastoral team.
I'm Jessica. I'm Laura.
Hi, my name is Barish Lazar from I Flow Movement.
Hi, I'm Claire from Feeling Yokeable.
I'm Cora. My name is Michelle. I'm part of the pastoral team.
I'm Laura Tilson from the therapy room at Fresh Ground.
I'm Steve, part of the management here.
We are Fresh
Fresh Ground.
Well, the day has finally come where somebody let me host my own talk show on Sunday morning. I'm not sure if that was really approved by anyone. I think it kind of got slid in there. But today we have in front of us Lauren and Clint Grimes, and we're just going to have a discussion with them today. For some of you, you may know a little bit about them. Some of you may know not as much about them, but we're going to kind of get to know them and their heart and exactly how we got to the place that we see in the video before us. So, Lauren, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Clint, how are you today? All right. Well, we're a little bit nervous, so we're going to get started here. I'm gonna ask Lauren. I know that here we are, getting ready to in a little over a month or so. You're ready to fly across the world and be in London. Where did your first experience with missions really take hold, or where was your first time that you really all of a sudden felt like you had a heart for missions, or that you could have that be something that was a part of your future?
I'd been on a couple mission trips before, but when I was a junior in college, it was about 7 years ago, I went to Italy for 2 months. And we did a lot of it's called friendship evangelism, which is basically instead of just being like walking up to a stranger and being like, hey, you need Jesus, you get to know them first. It helps. And you build relationships with them and build trust with them. And then slowly just start introducing the gospel to them. And so I really liked that aspect of it, and I'd heard about the trip through my school. They kind of send students all over the world each summer, and one of the places was Italy. And so for me, I've always just loved Europe, and I really want people to know about God. And I think that God gives us passions and dreams for a reason, and when what He's doing in His kingdom and what passions He's given you in His heart collide, it's like a beautiful thing. And so for me, it was like, yes, I want to go to Italy because I love Europe, but also like I want people to know about God. And so that's why I went, and it kind of changed things from there.
That's good. Now we hear Italy, and now we see Fresh Grounds in London. So typically when you think of missions, you usually think of third world nations or work and witness or impoverished countries. So what drew your attention to London? I guess what is the need there that makes it such a place that you can really connect with?
Well, and I remember when I was going to Italy, like some people would kind of make fun of me, like, oh, you must be suffering for Jesus over there in Italy. But after going, it was really sad. I mean, it's very dark spiritually. It's very dead spiritually. It's very agnostic and atheistic. It's kind of religion is like a thing of the past. Actually, we just were looking up some statistics about the UK the other day, and read in a recent study that I think it's more than half of just the UK alone claims no religion at all. And the majority of those people are young people. So this trend is just getting worse. And so I remember just coming back and being like, thinking about how people were kind of making those comments, but being like, nobody thinks of this place as a mission field. Like you think of Africa or India or China or wherever, but no one is thinking about Europe. People are forgetting about Europe. And so I didn't necessarily feel called to be a missionary, but I had this fresh awareness, and it was heavy, and it was like, so when I got back from the trip, I just told God, I was like, if you ever asked me to go there, like, I think I could do that. and I specifically told him, I was like, if you ever asked me to go to London, like, I think I could do that, because first they speak English, but I'm always like, I've loved Europe, but I've always loved London and all things British and all this stuff. And again, that whole passions colliding thing, it was just like, I think I could do that well. So that's how that, I guess, happened. And then again, that was like 7 years ago. And then I just like kind of just kept doing what I was doing. I was like, I don't feel called to be a missionary, but I'm just laying this out on the table for you. Like, if you ever asked me, there's that. And then I didn't tell anybody because accountability. So, so that's kind of how it went. So it was just this little secret, I guess, I had with God saying, I'll do this if you ever somehow made a way for that to happen.
So we see this kind of secret conversation that you put yourself out there, that you were willing and able. So Clint, Lauren is having these conversations, she's having these moments, she's having these kind of opportunities where she can surrender this future to God. Where did the dreams that maybe she had, or this potential for a dream, start to line up with yours, where it became something where all of a sudden you guys realize that you're kind of on the same page, that God is working this kind of together?
Yeah. Every 4 years, our church has a general assembly, and over 20,000 Nazarenes from all over the world come together, and I've never been to one, and so being on staff, get the privilege of going and doing that. And so I went, and it's really cool to see people from all nations worshiping together, and they also have these moments of kind of a business and voting and kind of the politic of the church, and that's not as much my forte, and so I'm kind of wandering around, but they have these workshops. And so I stumble into this workshop. I don't even really pay attention or know what it is, but I go in, and one of our retired GSs, Dr. Jerry Porter, was in there, and he was sharing. He was just kind of sharing this idea and this vision for the church, and it was just something that, as he talked, it was just like my soul lit on fire. It was like he was talking to me, kind of thing, and it was like everything that I kind of envisioned for ministry, he was just speaking. So a lot of you know, I've told my testimony. I was called to ministry in this church when I was 8. And at 8, you don't even know what that means. But then even in college, going after a theology degree, everybody's like, man, so what do you want to do? And what's that going to look like? And I'm like, man, I have no clue. And I never saw myself going after the traditional path, if you will, of ministry. I just always felt like God had just a different way that he was going to lead me, but I had no map for that. I had no idea. And I'm sitting here in this workshop, and this guy is talking, and it is just like, yes, that is me. And so it was just one of those things, and it just started bubbling up in my heart, and that when it was over, I ran out. I hopped on I called Lauren, who was back here, and I said, hey, baby, look, this is the idea. I've already worked this all out. And I basically said, well, why don't we combine our love for travel, our love for ministry, discipleship, our love of big cities. Why don't we just move to London and do ministry?
And I was like, what in the world?
There was this long pause, and at this time you got to realize, like, we're not even engaged yet. So I basically just put it all out there on the table and realized, like, maybe I should bring that back a little bit. But so the pause made me a little nervous, but she's like, what did you just say? And it was really amazing, because we got to have this talk, and she got to share with me what had happened basically 3 years earlier, and it was just a really cool thing where we both kind of began to scratch our head and wonder, is God up to something? Is he brewing something? And so it was really cool.
So what specifically in that either model of ministry or what they're doing in London kind of made it seem like it fit with what God was shifting in your heart for your idea of ministry? And even something to where, so when you go, we know that you're going to go there for a year, but then when you come back, how does that all kind of fit together? What specifically were some things that you were like, oh, I love the way that they do this, or I love this idea, or I love the way that they're stepping outside of the box to really grab a hold of that to feet?
Well, one of the big things in there was he basically started with a history lesson, Dr. Porter did, and he started talking about the early church and how the early church, when Jesus sent them out, he said, you're going to start in Jerusalem. And when they started going out, they started going to these big cities. And these uneducated men would go into these major metropolises, and they would start in the temples usually, but that's not where God broke out. They would start in the temple, but then very quickly they would move to the marketplace, they would move to the universities, they would move to the center of culture. And just the love and the power of these people and of the Spirit would just, the Bible actually says that they literally turned the world upside down. And so it was in this big city, it was in the influence of that culture that God began to move, and literally it just burst forth. And what he began to share was the idea that, when the ministry, when God started, it was in those cities, and it was really, in the big cities, it is in some of the deepest, darkest parts of human need and suffering and just everything that brings. And as the church kind of began to go, with need comes suffering and mess, and it's icky, and there's a lot to it. And unfortunately, what kind of began to happen, I think we see it a lot, is the church kind of began to flee from big cities. We kind of began to abandon big cities, and we moved to the suburbs, and we kind of moved out, and we kind of formed our own little communities, and we basically made this vacuum in these areas where people are. So one of his big calls was, hey, we need to return back to the scene. We need to return back and regain our influence and regain this light to the darkest part of the world. And so one of the things that he was sharing that rang so true to me is just the idea of the times of Billy Graham, at least in Western civilization, they're kind of over. The times of when, a pastor gets behind the pulpit and everybody's like, oh, it's a pastor and he's respected and this is just what it is, and mass revivals. Not that God can't do that, but you just kind of see there's such a skepticism, there's such it's just a different tone in our world nowadays. And so what he began to share is, look, if we're going to get back in and we're going to re-engage these people, we have to do this creatively. People aren't just coming necessarily just banging down the doors of the church, let us in, sanctuary. That's not what's happening. So if we want to get back in and earn a voice, we have to figure out how to creatively do that. And so that's what began to stir in me. It's like, okay, there's a different avenue. There's a different way to get in. And so the idea was very early church. It was relational. It was getting in the marketplace, building these relationships, earning a voice, earning trust, meeting people where they are, and then shining the light of the gospel on it, and allowing, as Pastor shared, the hope and the power that is in that to do its thing. And literally, the prayer is to turn the world upside down. So, I didn't know what that meant. I will say that. I was like, that's amazing. I don't know what we're doing. Let's go. And so, it took a little while, I think, for God to begin to clarify that vision, but that's kind of where it started.
So, Lauren, we have Clint, he's ready to go, he's called you up. This is years ago, and now here we are today, so there's been kind of a gap. While God is really forming these things in his heart, he's igniting his fire, he's setting it up where he feels like he is going to go. What are some obstacles that may have gotten in your way or made it difficult to start leaning into that, to have it line up with your future as well?
Well, the first thing was that we realized very quickly that we didn't really have connections. Like there was, again, it's not necessarily feeling this call to missions, but it's like, we don't know anybody over there. Like, how are we supposed to get over there? And so we both kind of realized pretty quickly, like, if this is ever going to happen, like, God's going to be the one that has to make it happen, because we don't know, like, how that would work. But then we also, as we started kind of talking to people who had gone over there before or were over there, like they were like friends of friends of friends of friends, like people we didn't really know well, like they all came back and said we had to fundraise to get there. You can't just go in this, I guess, I don't know, but you can't just go and get a job necessarily. Like, you have to fundraise completely to get there. And we were like in the beginnings of like paying off all of our student debt, and we had a lot, and so we knew that like we just didn't feel like it was being good stewards to ask people to pay for us to go over there while we had thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in debt. And so we both realized, like, before anything can happen, like, we have to get out of debt. And so that kind of became our goal, trying to get out of debt so that, and really it wasn't even just for Europe. It was, Europe was like, that would be cool if that ever happened. But, it was even just like, we just need to get out of debt, period. That way, if God ever asks us to do something, or something like this comes up again, we can just go and not have to think about it. And so we start like trying to do that, but then as time goes on, I just start to realize, like, this is going to take a lot longer than I think we thought. And and I'm like calculating in my head like how old we're going to be when we get out of debt. And I'm like, that's about the time that we're supposed to like start a family, and I'm not about like doing that in another country. And so in my mind, I just quietly am like putting the Europe dream away. I'm just kind of like, I think that if that was supposed to happen, it would have happened for us in the beginning of our marriage and not later. And so I just, and it wasn't like a huge disappointment necessarily. Again, it was like, that would be a really cool thing to do if all the stars aligned, I guess. But and so I just, in my mind, I didn't tell him. I was just like, I don't think this is happening for us, and so I'm just going to start making other plans. And yeah, so that's, I don't know, I guess that's kind of.
And a little bit on the other side is that communication thing. But we on the other side, God really He began to shift some things in my spirit while I was here, and I think we all probably struggle sometimes with God's will and what that looks like and how to move in that, and especially when a dream can seem so big. Oh, go to London, do ministry. But one of the ways it started, and just I don't know if this is helpful if anybody else has experienced it, but I just really began to feel an unsettling in my spirit for just kind of the status quo, or even just ministry as it had been going, and realizing that God was really just calling me out of that. And even just sharing with me, like, hey, you're not going to be a young adult pastor for a ton longer. And I didn't know what that meant, but just doing that, and even just little things. I went to Lauren probably 3 years ago, and I said, I don't know how this works, but I feel like God has called me to get to the place where I don't have to take a paycheck from the church. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's scriptural things for that. But I just felt like that was something personal for me, where God was just shifting and saying, I'm taking you out kind of what you've been doing and what that's looked like. And just giving me an unsettled urge to spring. Another thing that I would say that I think all people in ministry have probably experienced is there's a trap when you get into ministry. The devil, he's very subtle, but there is a trap to get in the mindset of building your own kingdom, or striving to build a ministry, striving to build and do this thing, as opposed to loving and serving the people, if that makes sense. And that may not resonate with everybody, but there is that thing where you just get caught in that. And God began to really reveal that. He's like, man, what's the motive here? What are you doing? Are you running after these people and loving them, or are you trying to make a name? What's the platform all about? And I really began to have that struggle as well. And then one of the final things was actually through is going to be, this is a shameless plug, but we've had Encounter and Freedom. Our next one is Discover, and part of the Discover class that we're hoping the church will go through is a thing that I went through. And what was really cool is it allowed me to step back and look at how God had built me, look at how God had been working in my life, my passions, my experiences, and He just began to reveal, look, man, I've built you different. I've built you as a bridge builder. You've always kind of had one foot in one world, one foot in the other. I haven't always stewarded that well, but I've been able to kind of be in the world and speak that language and understand that and kind of bring those two together. And even in college, I was in theology and a business major. And I was kind of a fluke, happenstance, but God is He just began to show me, I'm leading you somewhere else. And so it's just kind of interesting as we've gone through this process that as she was kind of settling into one way of life, God was just poking me and saying, hey man, it's not going to be this way for long. And I even told her at one point, I said, babe, I don't know what it's going to look like, but there's going to come a day where we're going to have to make a hard decision. And I just want to throw that out there and let you deal with that, let you stew on that, so when it comes time, I'm not getting killed in my sleep or something.
So we get there's a lot of throwing this out there and letting it simmer and marinate. And I know God was taking you and shaping and really confirming, and even with the unsettling, it was almost settling you somewhere else. But that was kind of pulling you this direction. And then you were kind of like, house, car, kids. If it was going to happen, it would have happened. And you were going the other direction. So how did we get to the place that we are today, sitting here, full circle, unified, resting in God's will and His promise, ready to set foot in the dreams that He put for you two together?
So it was actually about a year ago in August. We knew that we were a year away from getting out of debt, and I was really excited. And I was just like dropping not so subtle hints about houses and cars and kids and all this different stuff. And anyway, he came to me one day, it was in August, and he was like, I got this email today from this organization called Extreme Nazarene, and if you haven't heard of that, they send like young, mostly single people like down to South America, and they're there for like 2.5 years at a time, and they do a lot of church planting and some mission work and different things like that. And so he was like, we got this email today from them saying that they're expanding into Europe. And they have this position open in Germany. And it's a 2.5-year assignment. The first 6 months are learning German. And the job itself really intrigued him because it was a lot of this marketplace type ministry. And I was like, awesome, good for them, that's great. And he was like, I think that we need to apply. And I was like, no, I'm done with that. That ship has sailed. I'm good. I don't need to do that. And he was just very persistent and was just, I really think that we need to apply for this. And he was like, we don't have to commit to anything. Like, I just want to apply and see what happens. That's a trap. And so he asked me to start praying about it. And quite honestly, yes, very honestly, in my head, I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that. And I knew that he would ask me if I had prayed about it, and I'm a terrible liar, and so that's the only reason really that I did this. And so I started praying reluctantly about this, and God just came and met me where I was at. And he began almost immediately just speaking to me in ways that were unique to me. The very first way that he did that was I lead a small group for women my age, and I had picked out this study for them like in the spring to do in the fall. And Clint asked me to pray about this in August, and it was like a week or so later we start this study. And the entire thing is about stepping out of comfortable Christianity and stepping into these things that God has created you for. And so week after week after week, I'm having to sit there and listen to this, like not just listen to it, but essentially teach it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me. And so he began speaking to me through that and really like asking me some hard questions. Like one of the questions even was just like, why don't you want to do this? And so I had to sit there and think about it. And the best thing I could come up with was like, I'm really close to getting out of debt and I want a house and a car and like all these things that we have like sacrificed not having. And then he shot back this other hard question. So are you really saying that you would rather have these temporary things other than, rather than going and serving me? And some days, I will be honest, the answer was yes. Like, yes, I would rather have those things than do what you're asking me to do. But that didn't last long, and I knew, like, no, that's not what I want in the end. Like, yes, I want to serve you. And then another way that he was kind of working on my attitude was one day, I actually had, like, I'm a sponsor for the youth, which other shameless plug, we need some helpers on Wednesday nights. I went to youth group and Josh was talking, I think from Matthew, about these words that Jesus said were, whoever's not willing to leave his father or mother and follow after me and pick up his cross is not worthy of me. And those words just like pierced my heart, like is not worthy of me. And I was like, I'm like sitting among all these teenagers and like there's tears in my eyes and I'm like, what is happening? And I'm like, I want to be worthy of you. Like I want to do this thing, you know, but I still was very scared. I still had like a lot of fear. So it kind of changed my attitude, but then I was like, look, I'll talk about this now, but there's still a lot of things that have got to change before I can commit to this. And so there were several fears, but two of the big ones were, one was this idea of having a child overseas, because that is not how I saw this part of my life going, especially our first kid. And then the other thing was, I have this small photography business on the side, and the ultimate goal with that is to one day do that full time. And so I've been working for years and just pouring into this business on the side, like hoping to one day leave a full-time job and go do that full-time. And I'm realizing, like, I'm gonna have to walk away from this, like, which may not, I don't know, that may not sound like a big deal to you, but it's a big deal to me. And I know that you can take a camera anywhere, but again, this was like the dream of doing it full time and having the freedom to be at home and work and stuff was just, I could see it slowly fading away. And so there was one particular night actually that like I was really struggling with that, because for the longest time, like I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and in the last couple of years, I feel like I finally realized like this is what I want to do. And in the last year or so, it's just brought me a lot of fulfillment. It's something I've never really had in a job before. And so this one particular night, I was just really struggling with that because I was excited about some work I had been doing, and then I had this moment of like, I'm going to have to walk away from this. And I never really know if I'm going to get to do this how I want to, I guess. But in that same moment, I had this just second where I was like, you know what, God, like, I trust you with this. Like, I believe that you have given me this dream. I believe you've gotten me to where I even am today. Like, I don't, you know, it wasn't me. You've provided steady business for me, you know, just all these things. And I just want to give this back to you. I trust you with this, and that's all I can do, you know. And so the next day I go into work, and they were having career day at NCA. And my mom texts me, and she's like, hey, I invited this missionary to come speak at career day. You should come listen to her. And I was like, no, I am not, no more conviction, I'm not doing that. But I went. And this woman started pretty much telling our story, but 20 years ago. And the whole, like, they couldn't go because of debt, and then later they decided to go, but it was a hard decision on whether or not they should. And she began addressing every single fear that, and in some ways excuses, that I told God I can't go because of this. And one of the ones that she talked about were they had their first child overseas in Papua New Guinea, actually at the hospital that Charity Shoneman works at, lives on the base there. She told this crazy story about how the night that she goes into labor, the only OBGYN there was sick with the flu. And he was so sick he could not function. And so they're freaking out, like, what do we do if there's no other OBGYN? And it just so happened that the night before, an OBGYN from LA had flown in to donate a week of his time to the hospital. And so they went and woke him up, and he delivered her baby. And it was like God was like, if this woman can have a baby in Papua New Guinea, and I'm going to take care of all the details, you can have a baby in first world Germany, like, it's going to be okay. And I'm just sitting there like, I know, you know.
While she was there, the two tribes had went to war and took over the hospital.
It was like a much crazier story than that. Like, it was insane. Like, you know, yeah. And so then she talks about a couple other things that I was dealing with, but then she says, several people told us, do not leave, you're going to ruin your careers if you go. And she said they really, really struggled with that. Her husband was in IT work, and I guess, you know, especially back then, that was 20 years ago, it was just changing very fast. And they said, if you leave, you'll never be able to catch up. And they ended up leaving. They were gone for a couple years, and when they came back, within a couple months, I believe she said he was promoted to the head of an IT department, and he's been with the company ever since. And that she has published several books over the years, and a lot of them have come from her experiences overseas as well. And so it was like God was like, you give me your dreams, I'm going to take care of you. And I was just like, okay. But I still, even after all that, I had no peace about it. Like when I would think about it, it would make me sick to my stomach. I would want to cry. A lot of times I would. And the job itself was very much built for Clint. It was an extrovert's dream, honestly. And I did not want to do it. I was like, this is not built for me. I told him one day, actually, I think during the interview process, I said, everything that excites you about this terrifies me. And everything that energizes you about this exhausts me just thinking about it. And I can't imagine doing that for 2 years. I don't want to. And it also, I would tell him, if this was just a year, I'd be so much more willing to do this. I could do anything for a year, I think, but 2.5 years, that's a long time. And so we just were praying that God would give me a desire for it, that God would just make it clear what we were supposed to do. And so, yeah. So, sorry. So then we end up going through the interview process, and they come back to us and they say, we really liked you. You scored really high on our rating system for our candidates, but we just don't feel like you're a good fit for Germany. And I was like, praise God. And they actually offered us a position in Brazil that neither one of us felt good about doing that, and so we turned that down. And so I was like, I was really glad, but then I actually got a little bit mad, and I was like, why on earth would you, I felt like I'd been put through the emotional ringer. I'm like, why would you go through all that hard work to get me, it seemed like he was preparing me for something, then to just shut the door on it. And so I was a little bit mad about that for a while, but about a month later, we were at work one day, and we got an email from this church in London, and they said, we have received your resumes from the Church of the Nazarene, which we didn't know that they did, that they sent it, and they said, we are looking for people that have both of your skill sets to come and join our team. First of all, it was insane that this email is coming from London. I mean, we were like, what in the world? It's like 7 years in the making in some ways, and that was just incredible. And then in the very first email, they're like, hey, we don't just want one of you, or we don't just have this one specific job, but we actually have something that we need both of you for. And that was incredible. And then as we began talking with them and interviewing with them, in the very first email, or very first interview I think we had with them, they said, starting out it would only be 12 months. And I was like, I think that we can do this. And immediately, I mean, I went from just feeling just no peace. I don't know how to describe that any other way, but to, as soon as we got the email, this excitement and this stirring. I mean, it was like a 180. And so it was just, I don't know, just this excitement, yes, we can do this. And the more that we learned about it, the more that we prayed about it, the more we just could not deny that this was written for us. It was just, I don't know, it was incredible. And it really, honestly, it was the most amazing experience, I think, to walk through that, I think, with God, and just seeing that He knew what I needed to say yes to Germany, to then say yes to London. It was I'm just so thankful that He didn't let me sit in my stubbornness, because it's like He was like, there's something so much better for you. I just need you to trust me. And I'm so thankful, because I think about how I would not put it past me to be like, I'm not doing that ever. And to think about what I could be missing out on because I wasn't willing to trust God and just do whatever He asked me to do. And it was like He was saying, thank you for your willingness to go. You don't have to. Instead, here's your dream. And it was just, I don't know, it was just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, so you say that Germany didn't line up for the both of you, so what makes this, and what ways will you be serving that kind of makes it tailor-made for you and then also for you? Because that's the thing that is kind of unclear exactly how did that fit for you. So maybe if you want to answer first, and then we'll share.
Sure. One additional thing was just the timing of it all was so cool because when we were interviewing for Germany, when all that started in August, the church is only like a year old. And so when London was on our heart, this thing didn't even exist. And as God was doing all of this, and even when we were interviewing for Germany, it was like a baby, it was just a baby little seed. And so, and the fact that we got out of debt in August and able to go, just kind of an extra thing. But just to see how God loves us so well and leads us so well, and He's patient with us, was just amazing. But the thing that just jumped out, obviously with this, and you were able to see, is their style of ministry and what they're doing. It's this relational idea where they have church, and so one of the cool things is that we will be able to serve kind of in that traditional capacity that we love. I'll be able to preach, she'll be able to sing, we'll be able to disciple and teach and host small groups in our home. And so the things that we really love and enjoy about church, we're not missing out on that. That's still very much going to be a part of the deal. But what's really cool for me is just that idea of, one, it is going to be a built-in niche where it's flipping from 99% of my time being in a church bubble to 99% of my time being in the world, being rubbing shoulders with people who don't know God, who are far from God, who are hurting and broken. And so really kind of shifting and learning and figuring out that style of ministry and how that works, and just to think a whole different level of faith and boldness and strategy for loving people well. And as you saw, the idea is they own a coffee shop and a cafe. It's open 6 days a week. And so part of it is I will be working kind of on the business side with that. I'll be working to help for vision for that, and even working in the cafe. They're actually going to send us to Espresso School and help us figure that out. But a big part for me is actually just going to be just a presence there with the baristas, with the people. A lot of those vendors that come in, they're just people who they need a place for yoga, or they're just there to serve a latte. They're not believers. It's just a job for them. And so for me, I kind of get that neat ability to disciple and build relationships with those business owners and in that cafe. And so that's what I'm really excited about, is kind of learning. I'm basically, I hate to say college, but in some ways it is like God is going to be teaching me, and I'm going to be learning and absorbing this new ministry that God has been pushing me towards, so that hopefully someday I can come back. And I don't know what 2019 holds, I don't know what the future holds, but I believe that God is going to be preparing us and teaching that in this season. And so that's what I'm really excited about.
And then I'll get to do things that match my skill set. So I do a lot of stuff with like newsletters, publications, website stuff, social media, just different things like that. I'll get to help them with. And then they actually, probably like a month ago, they contacted me and said, hey, like, we see that you're really interested in photography. We would love for you to help us like start like a photography club for people to come to Fresh Ground and like learn more about how to use their cameras and like just all these different things like that. So that was also just really cool, and I think another little way that God was like, I see you, like we're gonna do this together. So anyway, and then I think they're showing some pictures of the building right now.
What I love is it's still very much the church. It's still a platform for getting out the gospel. It's just packaged a little differently. And what's so cool is if we see it in this place, I feel very, very blessed. And I'll speak to that in a second. But I feel very blessed to be in this place that does have so much going. That there's just so many different avenues for ministry. And what we're excited about there is really the opportunities are endless. When you have that space and platform and voice in the community, you saw that all these people are coming there for all these different reasons. The opportunities are endless, basically, for inviting people in and meeting them. People that may never come with the cross on the outside of a building. And so we're just excited for that.
I know as a church we're excited to come alongside you, and as I was talking with you earlier, I think that one of the coolest things is that we're not sending you off forever, that we're sending you off to sit in what God has for you, to learn, to grow, and to then almost be a missionary that will then come back to the States and be a missionary here and take that model and see how it's going to fit and work it out. And so it's a long-term investment. And I know that's the church, that's the dream of it. So in what ways can we help support your ministry and come alongside you and partner with you as you step out into this?
So I was thinking about this. I just want to say thank you. It's incredible. For one, this will be our home church to grow up in. And that almost backfired on me, I think, in some ways. But I just can't say enough about Pastor and our board and the fact that people would take a risk on a 24-year-old and bring him in. That you allow me to speak into your life, and that you would love me and love us and give us opportunities to grow and fail and fly. And just the encouragement and everything that you've been to us. None of this would be possible, even this dream, and none of it could happen without you guys. And man, we're just honored to be a part of this place. I know not everybody gets that. And so we're very privileged. So I didn't want today to feel like a breakup thing. It's not that. But yeah, obviously, I wanted to share with you the prayer that God has been kind of giving me. And I would love for you to pray it with me. But going back to that whole idea of turning the world upside down, one of the prayers that I've been praying is that this coffee shop would be such just a place of glory for God, that the city, which is the little borough where we're going to be, is called Battersea. It's the borough of London, kind of like New York has boroughs. But the vision and what I'm praying is just that God would so do something in a little coffee shop that Battersea would have to take notice. And that Battersea would then get so messed up and set on fire that London would have to take notice. And that London could then be just turned upside down for the glory of God, that the UK, that Europe, that the world takes notice. And I know that's the prayer for everywhere, but that's just been something as we go in. And so prayer for us. This is going to be a brand new adventure, not only for us as a couple, but even in ministry. It's just going to be so foreign. And you heard them kind of speak English up there. I don't know how many of y'all understood anything that they said, but there's a lot of times I just keep leaning closer and I look at her to say yes or no, and I'm not really sure. But man, we just know that God has been in this, and we need God's continued presence in this for any of this to matter. And we're just so thankful that we almost don't even have to ask. We just know, we've sensed that, we've felt y'all coming alongside of us and praying for us, and so we thank you for that. That is first and foremost. The other thing that we're kind of asking is, we have a sizable goal. We're going for 1 year. That is our commitment at the moment. And London, you kind of learn these things as you go, but London is one of the most expensive places to live in the world, we learned. And as we visited, it's on the pound, which is a little stronger than the dollar. So our goal is actually $70,000 that we're trying to raise. That's for both of us for 1 year. And so you kind of see a 1-in-1 challenge that we have set up there.
We stole that from Charity.
We still have to thank you, Charity, for paving the way. She's a pioneer on that. But what we would love is we broke it down to $1 a day or $30 a month. And we're asking people to come alongside and support us monthly. And that will kind of serve as our almost like our paycheck while we're there. And that's what will kind of continue to come in and sustain us. And so we would just ask for anybody just to pray and consider what God would have you do. Some have come on board and they say, we can't quite do that. We'll do a little less. Some have come on and said, hey, I can represent 2 people or I can represent 3 people. Huh? Oh, sorry. And so we're asking for 150 people. So basically, if 150 people can commit for that 12-month period, then we'll be fully funded. And so, $30 a month, $1 a day. So either way, the easiest way to do it is we have a website. We made it super easy, mainly for me, but it's clintandlauren.com. And so what we'd love for you to do is go on our website. Lauren made a beautiful website. And there's a newsletter that you can subscribe to, and what we would love for you to do is to go on and subscribe to that. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to put out constant newsletters it'll have testimonies of what God's doing, sharing our stories. And one of the big things I think is we'll be able to share prayer requests with our supporters. Things that we couldn't necessarily blast on Facebook or anything like that, but we know the people who are bringing us before the Lord. We can share that with you in confidentiality, and we would just love that. You can keep up to date with us. But then also on there, there's a place to donate, and you can sign up monthly to just have it auto draft, or you can send a check. There's a place for that that says on the website. And it says all checks can be made to GTS Church of the Nazarene with our name in the memo. So I don't know if this is but we just, I appreciate you giving us time this morning. I know not everybody gets that, and I kind of almost felt guilty for that, but we love you, and we just appreciate you, and God bless you guys.
Would you help me send 2 of the people I love the most away? Just lean over and say, this is why we're here. What if 23 years ago, we showed up in this place, and there was some kid running around with Kyle Hutchison tearing up the place? And then later, sends a call, and then do everything he could to try to mess that up. I had a praying mama. Some of you need to hear this. You had a praying mama that even say, she'd pray, Lord, if he's messing around tonight, if he's screwing up, get him arrested. And then she'd get a call from the cops, say, leave him there. What if God then decided to get a hold of his heart again? And then he had the audacity to ask me for my oldest daughter. He took me to dinner and he said, I'm not worthy of your daughter. And I said, you're not. You're right. Didn't I? And then I said, but I'm not worthy of her mother either. My little church I grew up in Omaha, I don't know that it ever got over 100 people. But it sent out like a dozen ministers all over. And maybe none of them even got into churches that were over 100 people, but they have multiplied the ministry of Little Omaha, Nebraska. And what if God wants to start a holy fire in London that was sparked in Crowley, Texas? Wow. And we can be a part of that. Amen. So I'm going to ask you to send my daughter away so that my grandkids can speak like British people. I'm going to receive the tithes and offerings, but I'd ask you to do something generous. Not everybody can do. Maybe I would think most of us probably could. You could give up a Coke a day or something and help with this opportunity. And I feel a little bit weird because they're my kids, but at the same time, I don't know. Because I think it's really kingdom. If you heard that story, it's really kingdom. It's not Lauren and Clint's agenda. Everything I'll say to you, and I think a lot of us, especially my age and up, we need to listen to that verse. It says that if you will give the Lord, if you will give yourself to the Lord, He will give you the desires of your heart. So many of us, I'm afraid, are just living in the rut. We're living in the expectation of what somebody else wanted or something else instead of just really pouring into God and let God pour into us, and He will give you the desires of your heart. And I don't think it's too late for any of us. Amen. Amen.